Welcome to Video on Demand, episode number 5 of the Leesburg 30th Annual Martin Luther King Day Commemorative Series. This episode features voices from around the Commonwealth of Virginia. Local, Commonwealth, and federal officials share their perspectives on legislative civil rights accomplishments, milestones, and goals. Virginia's United States Senators Mark Warner and Tim Kaine, Virginia Governor Ralph Northam, and Virginia Attorney General Mark Herring, as well as Loudoun County's Commonwealth Attorney Buta Biberaj, provide their personal insights. Thank you for supporting this program and the entire series. Remember, this series is available on YouTube and Facebook.
It is my pleasure to now introduce our legislators, those who serve us, we the people. We appreciate you taking time to be with us today and to hear from you what's top of mind on today, Dr. King's birthday. First up, we will hear from our U.S. Senator, Mark Warner.
Virginia Senator Mark Warner here, and I want to congratulate the MLK I Have a Dream Committee for honoring and celebrating the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. for 30 years. Now more than ever, making Dr. King's dream a reality, that we can live in a country with equality for all, is so critically important. We've seen COVID strike disproportionately people of color. We've seen the brutal murder of George Floyd raise the absolute necessity for us to address systemic racism in policing and all across our society. One area that I've been particularly focused on over the last number of months is the level of economic inequality that exists in our country. I think we've all seen disproportionate not only health care but economic effects of COVID. Literally 420,000 black businesses have closed their doors. That's why I'm so proud to have sponsored the Jobs and Neighborhood Investment Act that will make record investment in black-owned banks and community development financial institutions, over $15 billion. Proud to have support of even the Trump administration, bipartisan senators, and my belief is this legislation, critically important, will be included in the next COVID relief package. What it will do is it will make direct equity investments in these institutions that lend to minority businesses. This kind of direct equity investment, $10 billion, for example, could be leveraged to $100 billion of lending capacity. No single bill is going to equalize economic opportunity, but if we're going to really make Dr. King's dream of equality for all a reality, we've got to make sure that there is fairness in terms of access to capital. My Jobs and Neighborhood Investment Act takes a giant step in that direction. So for 30 years of your great work, my hope is at some point that work could be done, but we all know there is still so many things that need to be addressed to make sure that Dr. King's dream becomes a reality. So thank you for your service. Let's recommit ourselves, especially during this period of COVID, to making sure that equality for all and justice for all becomes a reality in our country.
This is Senator Tim Kaine in my Senate office in the Russell Building on Capitol Hill. I want to thank Loudoun County for asking me to participate virtually in your annual celebration of the life and legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Normally we would be together doing this in person, and it's unusual to do it in this way. But if 2020 has demonstrated anything, it's demonstrated that the life mission of Dr. King is far from complete, and that we have to dedicate ourselves even more to the purpose for which he lived his life. In 2020, we suffered through a once-in-a-century global health pandemic, and we know who suffered the most, who disproportionately gets coronavirus: African Americans and Latinos. Who has died disproportionately of coronavirus? Minorities, especially African Americans. Who has lost their jobs, particularly because of coronavirus? African Americans, Latinos, other minorities, young people, women, those working at the lower end of the salary and wage scale. This has touched everyone. My wife and I have had coronavirus, and 2 of our 3 children were laid off for months because of the pandemic. But it doesn't touch everybody equally. Again and again and again, what we've seen during 2020 is in this crisis moment, the shocking inequality that remains in our country in contravention of our original promise about ourselves still is obvious and compels action. During the pandemic, we've also seen played again and again on our TV screens the brutal murder of George Floyd and news about murders of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor. And we've had to grapple again with the reality, the longstanding reality of deep institutional racism in many of our institutions, including our criminal justice system. So 2020 has been a year where a mirror has been held up to our society, and amidst a lot of pain, some of the things we see in that mirror have to make us profoundly uncomfortable. But being uncomfortable is not all a bad thing. I think it was Thomas Edison who said discontent is the first sign of progress. You can be contented and complacent, or you can be honest and recognize realities that are unacceptable and resolve to change them. And we have seen signs of change. In Virginia, the removal of the Confederate statues in my hometown of Richmond, the state of Virginia's decision to replace the Robert E. Lee statue in Statuary Hall with a statue of civil rights leader and a little child shall lead them, Barbara Johns. The decision that I have been part of in the Senate as part of the Armed Services Committee to rename bases that were named for Confederates who took up arms against the country, to divide it in half so that they could continue to perpetrate the subjugation of slaves. The toughness of the year has also forced us to confront some things and begin to make changes, but many, many more are needed. I know as you gather on this Martin Luther King Day to grapple with the meaning of 2020, the real reason to do it is to look ahead to 2021. An inauguration, a new chapter, new opportunities to embrace new policies that will move us closer to the North Star of equality that Dr. King died for, but more importantly, that Dr. King lived for. And so to my friends in Loudoun, for whatever the challenges that you have been through in 2020, I reach out to you in those challenges. But I also know one thing very profoundly, that often the periods of the most significant progress occur after some of the periods where the challenges have been the most intense. We've been through an intense challenge. It's not over. But let's dedicate ourselves to making this year a year of great progress that we can come and reflect upon when we're together again on Martin Luther King Day in 2022. Thanks so much.
Hello everyone, I'm Attorney General Mark Herring, and while I'm a proud Loudoner, I am coming to you today from the Barbara Johns building, which is also the office of the Attorney General. My team and I are so proud to have this building named after Barbara Johns, and it has special meaning for us because Barbara Johns, when she led the walkout at the Moton School in Prince Edward County, it was a journey that ultimately took her all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and her Attorney General at the time was fighting her every step of the way. And so it is a lesson for us to make sure that we remember that the Attorney General is the people's lawyer and should always be on the side of fighting for people's rights, not the other way around. We know that our country and our Commonwealth continues to struggle to dismantle systems that were discriminatory and oppressive, yet at the same time we have made tremendous progress. And in the last several months, I have seen such energy and enthusiasm for doing everything we can to break down those systems of discrimination, those systems that continue to perpetuate inequities. As I joined demonstrations this summer, I saw people of all walks of life, all races, all faiths, all ages, joining together, recommitting themselves, ourselves, to the fight to break down systemic racism and inequities that continue to persist throughout our Commonwealth and our country. In Virginia, we have made a lot of progress, especially these last 6 or 8 months. The General Assembly session has resulted in a lot of criminal justice reform measures, policing reform measures, and working together, we can continue this effort to make Virginia a place that is more equal and more fair for all. So I want to say to all of you, thank you for all of your continued advocacy, and I look forward to continuing our work together in the months and years ahead.
Hello, I'm Virginia Governor Ralph Northam. Thank you for inviting me to join you both to celebrate the 30th anniversary of this important community program and to honor the life and great legacy of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. The theme of this year's event, Equality Above All, Overcoming Injustices and Inequities, has a special significance given the unprecedented year we lived through in 2020. From the recent disturbing events that threatened our American democracy to the challenges and uncertainty created by the COVID-19 pandemic to the senseless murders of Black Americans that ignited a racial reckoning in our country and our Commonwealth. I think about Dr. King, who spoke often about the importance of stepping up and speaking out against something that is wrong or something that needs to change. He said, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." That quote is just as important now as it was when he said it, maybe even more so. As governor, I know I have a responsibility to look out for all Virginians, but I also believe I have a special duty to look out for the Virginians who are most in need of our help. Despite the difficult year we faced, we came together to help people navigate this health crisis and to advance long overdue priorities. We enacted common sense gun safety laws and passed meaningful criminal justice and police reform. We took historic steps to protect vulnerable Virginians, making voting easier and more accessible, prioritizing affordable housing, and curbing predatory lending practices. But we know there is more work to do. I will continue to stand with you as a partner, and I look forward to continuing our collective work toward deeper systemic change in law enforcement and in our healthcare, education, and criminal justice systems. This is about centuries of inequity and injustice and doing the hard work that is necessary to ensure we shape a new future, one that is more equitable and inclusive, one that tells the true story of our past and learns from it. Thank you so much.
Spoken by Dr. Martin Luther King on August 28, 1963, at the March on Washington, where 250,000 Black and white Americans joined together, demanding our government provide jobs and freedom for all. 250,000 Black and white Americans joined together in 1963 to stand for equity and justice. We are in 2020, and we are still joining forces and demanding that our government provide equity and justice to our communities of color. In 2020, we saw the murders of many Black people that were unlawful and unjust. Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd are just a few on a very long list. When we witnessed these murders, our hearts broke. We took action because, as Dr. Martin Luther King said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Loudoun County, we stood up and we stood together and marched and rallied for our government to understand that Black lives matter. That we were not going to stand for this injustice here because it was going to be a threat to justice everywhere. In Virginia, we demanded from our elected officials to reimagine what the criminal justice system should look like rather than what it is. What it can look like is providing equity and equality to the treatment of our Black and brown people. What it is a system based on racism. As Martin Luther King said, The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. 2020 is a time of controversy. 2020 is a time of challenge. However, the time is always right to do what is right. Now is that time. MLK, I Have a Dream Committee, thank you for 30 years of bringing this event to our community and allowing us to share and reflect on the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, to reflect on the mission of Dr. Martin Luther King to bring equity and equality to our people, and for us to revisit his dream. I'm Buta Biberaj, and I'm Loudoun County's Commonwealth's attorney, and I thank you for this opportunity to participate in this amazing event, and also to be able to thank the MLK I Have a Dream Committee for the last 30 years and for the next 30 years, for always putting our community first and making sure that we stand firm on the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King.